So I'll go ahead and start. Good morning. I think it's morning for everybody across at least North America here. Uh, this is going to be a 1 hour panel on the community college work and advancing social justice and economic equity in the community college. And I know that for all of our panelists, this is a topic, the community colleges is just near and dear to our hearts. I think that the combined between myself and Kathy and Manny and Bruce and Ed, I'm going to guess that we might have close to, I'm going to go out on a limb here, maybe 150 to 200 years of work in the community college sector. So this is important to us, and we want some time for them to share their background and their interest. I'm going to just go through a quick PowerPoint, and then I'm going to introduce the panelists here. Basically, let's see. Just some demographics, if you will. They're about, again, the information that we have is from the American Association of Community Colleges, and I think the last time they updated that might have been a couple of years ago. So there's over 10 million students in community colleges, and most of them are part-time. And also, a larger percentage of them are women students. The data on demographics is about, I guess, 43% Anglo, but if you look at Hispanic, Native American, African American, and also multiracial, that combines to about 51%. So that some people don't identify, but these demographics are changing. The percentage of Anglo or white people is going down. The percentage of Hispanic is going up, and the percentage of African American is about staying the same in most of our community colleges nationwide. The age range, I think a lot of folks think that, oh, they just go from high school to community colleges, but about, over 35% are between 22 and, close to 40, with a good percentage of those being over 40 years old. So we've got students that are returning to the community college, and in some cases, people are starting at the community college as their first time in entering higher education. All three of my kids actually had time at Austin Community College, and my son is one of these folks that started the community college in his late 30s. He had 3 children, and he finished about age 40. So the age range is quite diverse in community colleges, but the tuition and fees remain low. I know in our Central Texas area, where Manny and I live and work, that it's the lowest cost option for higher education in our whole Central Texas region. A lot identify as first generation college students. And I know that sometimes when we have graduations for Austin Community College District, our chancellor will say, how many of you are your first in college, in your family? And you can see all the students down here who are graduating in the auditorium, and how many rise and say, yes, I am the first in my family to get a college degree. And it's an enormous percentage of our graduates. A lot are single parents, and we can talk more about this issue with people needing work with childcare. We have to do some things around transportation, and what we call wraparound services in the community college. And a good percentage identify as having either a visible or invisible disability. Our national organization is the American Association of Community Colleges, and they represent over 1,100 community colleges across the nation. They're based in Washington, D.C., and they're the voice of the national community college arena in Washington to our legislators and look at the impact of programs. and looking at national policy. They come out with a legislative agenda each year, things that they're promoting with our representatives and our senators, Higher Education Reauthorization Act, more access to benefits for our low-income students, again, workforce, tax credits, work with our veterans, the DREAM Act, and working with immigration policy. And they also look a lot at international education programs. And some of the issues right now in community colleges is the lower amount of state support for community colleges. Arizona eliminated state support. I know that here in Texas, it used to be a large percentage of our budget was state support, and that number is decreasing every year. Some states, like Florida, are eliminating basic skills and developmental programs. Some community colleges are now adding baccalaureate programs. So they not only are looking at adult basic ed, certificate programs, transfer programs, but people can get a baccalaureate degree at a community college. Again, we're looking at credit pathways, so people can start with maybe some non-credit courses to credit to certificates and maybe degrees. Some community colleges are looking at prior learning credit, and then a lot of colleges, and it used to be a national agenda looking at these promise programs, which a lot of people are advocating for free tuition for the community colleges. So those are some of the background. So I'll stop sharing that so we can see our panelists as we're going through. And let me briefly introduce the panelists because you saw their resume on the announcement. Kathy, if you'll raise your hand, and yeah, there she is. Okay. Kathy is a full-time faculty member at Fielding in our doctorate in education program, but she had worked as director of student success at Valencia College, which is a high visibility community college in Orlando, and was a project director for a $1.8 million grant on student success at the college. She really, her background is in higher education studies, and particularly in college student services and college student affairs. The next person, if you'll kind of raise your hand, Ed, is Ed Leach. He is also a faculty member with us at Fielding, but he's the director of the National Organization for Community Colleges called NISOD, the National Institute for Staff and Organization Development. And I know he'll also mention that his annual conference is coming up in May in Austin. And usually you bring in, what, 1,500, community college educators, administrators to that conference. Ed also was a vice president at another national community college organization called the League for Innovation. And he was also a principal investigator for a $2.5 million national science grant that helps students look at complex engineering challenges. So he does a lot of grant work. He was a co-investigator for another $10 million Internet in Education grant, where he worked with over 1,000 community college faculty. Ed is also an author of several articles and books on personal growth and intellectual growth of African American males, and also things on the digital divide. Manny, or Dr. Manuel Gonzalez, right there in the middle, is the regional director for what's called the Western Governors University, which was started in the late 90s by 19 US governors to expand higher education across the nation. And Manny's area is a small area: Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, Oklahoma, New Mexico. So he oversees that area. And he's also served previously as the executive director for the Community College Association of Texas Trustees, which oversees the 50 public community colleges in Texas. He's also done work with the Texas House of Representatives and the White House Domestic Policy Council. And last but certainly not least is our esteemed colleague, Dr. Bruce Leslie. And Bruce has close to 35 years as a president or chancellor in large urban community college districts. And one of the things that was under his watch when he was the chancellor at Alamo Colleges in San Antonio, that they got the Malcolm Baldrige Quality Award for Performance Excellence. At that time, they were the only higher education multi-college system to be recognized by that. Ed has also got many recognitions for diversity awards, the Western Region for Chief Executive Award. He does consulting with the American Community College Trustee Association, and he continues to serve in other capacities, and he was recently elected in Colorado to the Broomfield City Council. So he continues to serve in multiple areas. So we've got interesting folks. And for me, like I said, these community colleges are near and dear to my heart. I have taught at 3. I've been a dean of 2. I've been on the Austin Community College District Board now 24 years as a publicly elected board member, along with my colleague, Dr. Gonzalez. And this kind of work has always been important to me. I started working in the community college sector many, many years ago. I helped start Austin Community College, the founding. I helped transition a 100-year-old private junior college in North Carolina to be a public community college. And this kind of work is so vital to the economic development of all of our regions where these colleges are located. But the stories we all hear about the impact of community colleges on people's lives and what they're doing for themselves and their families, the stories are heart-rending, and you can see people really moving on with their lives in positive ways. So that's one of the reasons that I have always stayed in the community college field. I think it just makes a difference in the economic equity of our region, but also in the individual and family lives of so many people. So I'm going to stop and just ask folks, Kathy, why do you work in the community college sector? And can't hear you, Kathy. Kathy?
Hi, can you hear me now? Like Barbara said, I've served as an administrator in a couple community colleges, including Valencia College in Orlando. And I really believe that the community college is the nation's bright shining star for equity in higher ed. It's such an excellent pathway to the bachelor's degree in grad school for so many students, especially those who can't afford tuition at other schools. And those students who are underprepared for college, adult learners, as Barbara mentioned, and first-gen students. So I truly believe that community colleges provide access and support the success of students. My research has been with Latino community college students who are more likely to attend a community college than a four-year school when they start, mostly because of geographic proximity and low tuition. So for these students, the community college is an essential on-ramp to higher ed, providing them with academic support they need to be successful there, as well as the transfer preparation for the four-year institution. So I think the reason I work in community colleges is because it opens doors so students can achieve their dreams. One of the students in my dissertation research said that education is like a magic carpet. It can take you anywhere. And that's why I believe in education in general, but community colleges in particular.
Thank you. So Bruce, you've been in that field for a long time. Why?
I knew Barbara Mink when Barbara Mink was just a child. We were together in Austin in graduate school. And in fact, her former husband, Oscar Mink, was my dissertation director. And he really influenced me because he believed in something called systems theory, that everything is interrelated. And that inspired me so much that over my entire career, I kept advocating for how do we leverage all of the assets of our organizations in the best interests of students so that we're able to ensure more students graduate, more students are employed, more students are able to transfer successfully, complete their baccalaureate degree, et cetera. I decided because I had really wonderful mentors, people like Barbara and Oscar Mink, people like John Roosh, who was the director of our program at UT Austin, a guy named John Grable, who was eventually a president of one of the colleges in Texas, but was also at Sam Houston State University and became a mentor of mine and led me to John Roosh, in fact. And I had faculty who saw in me something other than being a professor, but saw administrative leadership in my future. And I had been in the Navy, and so I had been an officer, so I had some leadership preparation before I came to higher ed. But I've always been motivated by the need to reach people who generally don't see education as part of their future. When I was in college, undergraduate school, I did neighborhood work. I did development work. I protested the war in Vietnam in Washington, D.C. I was in a program to help encourage more students in the South to seek education. We traveled throughout the South back in the 60s when segregation was still an issue. And so I saw a lot of things that encouraged me to look for those folks who don't see education as part of their future, help them to realize it is, in fact, part of your future. And when I started at UT Austin in the Community College Leadership Program, John Roosh said something to us that stayed with me forever. And he said simply, every student can learn. And universities take the prospect that not every student can learn. In fact, I've had public arguments with our former director of the coordinating board in Texas, who took the position that not every student can learn. And I just felt that was a shame. All of us have capability. It's not all the same capability, but every one of us has a possibility to become much greater than we perceive ourselves to be. And so that's what motivated me. So I became an administrator because I could have more leverage on improving the college operations, which are critical to student success. We often think it just is whatever takes place in the classroom. But we learned that that's not so, that all the other supportive systems are critical for students to be able to stay in college, complete their degrees, and go on to wherever they wish to go. So administration became my art, if you will. And that's why the Baldrige program became so valuable to us, because it gave us a systems approach to moving from being one of the worst producing colleges in the state of Texas to being not only one of the best in the country and best in Texas in terms of student graduations and operational performance. So that became the motivation for me, was to make sure we were in fact focusing on students, not everything else, that we were reaching out to people who didn't see themselves as going to college, and making sure that they not only graduated from us, but graduated with a baccalaureate degree, got the kind of jobs that they were seeking for their families and themselves. And as Barbara said, so many of our students are adults, they already have families. They just don't know how to move beyond where they're kind of stuck. And that's what community colleges can do.
Thank you. Thank you, Bruce. And also, by the way, I'll be watching the chat if folks have questions that we're going to have some time for some questions. So please put them in the chat. I know that Kathy Penfo Navarro is also watching the chat. So thank you, Kathy. Manny, how about you? How did you get involved in community colleges? Why do you work in this sector?
Yeah, and so you forgot to note in my biography that I am also a former student of yours as well. And so, if nothing else, I am a testament to what you can do if you are successful in Dr. Mink's course. And so, just wanted to give that additional plug there. In terms of how I came into community colleges and why I do the work that I do, I will say that you'll hear a lot of overlap when we talk amongst anybody who works in this space, is that there's something inspirational about working in community colleges that is just really hard to replicate anywhere else in the higher education space. Yeah, you can maybe see it in the regional 4 years as well. But I'll say candidly, when I started my journey into studying higher education administration, I had this vision of I want to work at a UT Austin and do this and that. And I realized as a first generation college student, while I love UT Austin, if you really want to have meaningful impact on students' lives, first gen students like myself, that work is really done at community colleges. Again, the community colleges are where you're meeting individuals who are often I will say community colleges do the best job of breaking cycles of generational poverty. Community colleges are best equipped at meeting the unique needs of students in ways that four-year institutions just aren't. And so if you want to have a profound impact on communities and feel like your work is really transformational, I challenge you to find a better place in a community college. Now, what I'll say is that my background in the work that I've done has always been policy centric. And so whenever I try to have conversations like this, I always think of how can we expand our efforts and impact not just in our small community, but statewide, systems-wide, nationally. And so why do I do the work that I do? Not just because it's transformational to the unique individual, but because it truly can be impactful to a region. When we talk about Central Texas, to the entire state, again, thinking about Texas centric, but even nationally in terms of what we're trying to do as a country, and again, providing, a pathway to economic mobility. And so innovation and the ability to have a transformational impact are the reasons why I work in this space. And I know I never get tired of it.
Mm. How about you, Ed? You've worked, in a variety of areas and kind of at the national level with NISOD and with the league in, multiple community colleges.
Yeah, thank you, Barbara, and good morning, everyone. And I'm so glad to see Tara and Tessa have joined us this morning. A couple of students that I've had an opportunity to do independent contracts with, so I'm glad to see that they've joined us. A lot of what I'm getting ready to say, you've already heard from the other panelists. I started off at a community college, and I was a typical community college student, like you heard Barbara describe earlier, in my late 20s, first generation, looking for a way to improve my lot in life. I had gotten laid off from a factory that I had been working at for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years at that point. And I was fortunate that the local community college has started a program for displaced workers, folks like myself who got laid off from their employment. And they had a grant to help provide support for those students. And I really didn't know anything other than I wanted to open my own gym. I got involved in physical fitness at that point, wanted to open my own gym. I thought I got to go to a community college and figure out what I need to do to be able to open my own gym. And they welcomed me with open arms, led me through the process. And I think my experience there, 2 years at Genesee Community College, really initially opened my eyes to what community colleges were all about. But it didn't really sink in until I had gone off, got my bachelor's degree, my master's degree, went back to Genesee Community College and started working there as a faculty member. Became friends with a couple of the administrators that were there at that college, who pointed me to the same program that Bruce Leslie had mentioned, and maybe someone else, the Community College Leadership Program at the University of Texas at Austin. So I went there to get my doctorate, and then in that experience became obviously much more familiar with community colleges, even though I had the experience of being a community college student myself and working some at a community college. It was that experience at the Community College Leadership Program at UT Austin that really opened my eyes to what community colleges are all about, what they can do for folks who are like myself, trying to improve their lot in life. So I call community colleges the people's college, because unlike four-year institutions, which tend to, it seems like they take their pride in how many people they can not enroll. Community colleges enroll the top 99% of students that come to them. So they're obviously a pathway, a gateway to a better life for so many people. And I've been able to, because of my work with at the League for Innovation, now with NISOD, see the difference that these community colleges, because our colleges in both organizations are community colleges across North America and a handful of other countries, see the difference that these community colleges are making in the lives of not only the students, but in the communities where they reside. So I would strongly encourage anyone who's considering whether or not to work at a community college to really think about doing so. It's such a fulfilling work when you see the impact that these institutions have on the students that attend those institutions. So please, if you think about working at a community college, by all means, please do so.
Ed, could you also just take a second to talk about your community college conference that's actually coming up and what people might be able to expect there? Because I believe you offered a reduced registration fee for fielding folks that want to attend, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. I'll deal with that last piece first, I guess. Our registration is anywhere from, I don't know, $700 to $800, depending on whether or not you're at a member college or non-member college, and early registration versus late registration and all that good stuff. But for the folks at Fielding, we are providing an opportunity for them to attend the conference for only $100. So that's a significant discount over our normal registration fee. As you heard earlier, Barbara described a conference. It's a conference for community college educators. Folks come from all over the world to attend that conference. We'll have close to 1,000 people in attendance. And there's sessions there largely around instructional matters for faculty members, but we also have something called the Administrator Series in conjunction with that conference. It's a set of sessions designed specifically for upper level administrators, presidents, vice presidents, chancellors, vice chancellors, about some issues of particular interest to that group of individuals. As you can see behind me, or maybe you can't actually see the date behind me, it's May 25 through 28 in Austin, Texas. Great place to be at the end of May, especially if you like good food and good music. But yeah, there's an opportunity for folks and I believe, Tara, if I'm not mistaken, you've already registered for the conference, and hopefully we'll see some of the other of you there too. If you need the special code that actually, when I get done here, I'll
You could put it in the chat.
put
Yeah.
it in the chat. Yeah. So that's a little bit about our conference coming up. So thank you for that, Barbara.
Yeah, you're welcome. I think it's a good opportunity for people who are interested in working in the field to interact
Absolutely.
with people from all community colleges. You know, like you say, we get some international folks, but across all North America, people come to that conference. So
Exactly.
I think that you're getting a sense, I hope you're getting a sense of the community college sector is for people who are working like in adult basic education, people who are working in who want to improve their career or workforce development. Transfer part is part of the community college, and then we're adding some baccalaureate degrees. So even though it is a first chance for people who have not, you know, first in their family to go to college, maybe weren't thinking their quote college material, etc. There's also people who choose the community college just because of the quality of the instruction and the low cost, so that they go for the first 2 years at a community college and then transfer to a 4-year school. So we have transfer, we have certificate programs, we have workforce programs, etc. So if you're thinking about a career for yourself in the community college field, there are people that you could be an instructor, you could be an administrator, you could work in the workforce programs, you could work in student services, IT areas. There's a multiplicity of ways to contribute. Most community colleges also have foundations. So some people, you might want to volunteer to be a member of your foundation board for your community college to raise money for scholarships for students. So there's a lot of, I think, career opportunities for yourself in the community college field. One of the other things that I think nationally community colleges are now doing is I know that in our Central Texas region, again, I'll talk about Austin, when a major employer moves to Central Texas, Austin Community College District is at the table talking with them about their needs of their employees. So it is really, the community college is a very active voice in any kind of academic development in the region as well. So is there anything that you'd like to share? I'll go back to Kathy, maybe an example from your Valencia work. Because people talk about community colleges being social equity and economic development. Do you have any example that you might think about to share with folks?
One of the things that has driven me in my own work in community colleges is really focused on that kind of step up. So I put in the chat that a student's socioeconomic background, their parents' income, is still the biggest predictor of whether somebody goes to college in the US and where they go to college. So they're less likely to go to college based on lower income and more likely to go to a community college if they're coming from lower income. So the community colleges are really poised to really disrupt all these systems that have been formed and developed that really continue to perpetuate generational wealth, as one of my colleagues already mentioned. And that community college is, that moment of disruption really opens doors for students, not just for access to higher ed, but also because of all these types of services that we do to really support their success. So when I was at Valencia, I really collaborated with brilliant, engaged faculty who were just obsessed with student success. And we were able to integrate college success skills across the curriculum, for example, so that faculty would teach and integrate time management skills or academic planning skills, critical thinking, those kind of things across the curriculum, so that whether students are studying anatomy or architecture or anything in between, they were able to be involved in developing those college success skills so that they could be successful, right? And not just come to college, but be successful in college. So I think the low tuition and the open access mission of the community college is really the thing that, for me, I have seen student after student in the new student experience work that I did really come to identify their purpose, think about their values, find a career that aligns with those values if they're still looking for a career, and take that step towards preparing for their bachelor's degree, the workforce, graduate school, medical, professional degrees, those kind of things. So community colleges really open the doors to not just the associate's degree, but also all the grad schools that, or all the dreams that follow.
Anything, Manny, that you think about, and maybe a specific example from your work?
Yeah, so what I often think about when I think about community colleges, the work that gets done, is that there's a beauty in community colleges that just cannot be stated enough. We are a disruptor of the status quo. And when we talk about, the higher education, oftentimes there's a criticism right now of, whether or not universities are, worth the costs and the value of a higher education credential, and some of that deservingly so. Especially of the maybe four-year institutions that may be kind of a siloed town gown dynamic, that they're not truly embedded in the community. But community colleges, by virtue of who they are, where they're situated, how they function, are connected not just to the workforce, they're connected with their independent school districts, they're connected with any kind of community engagement effort. And again, this is not done just, there needs to be an intentionality to that, but there's really a sense of whenever a community has a fully engaged community college involved in the efforts, good work is being done. And I'll say that whether it's urban, rural, a conservative part of this country, a progressive part of the country, large, small, you will see a bipartisan support of community colleges because, again, they recognize there's a workforce value add there for upskilling and reskilling folks. And then there's also an equity in access in terms of individuals who may be first gen and looking at higher education as unattainable, but community colleges provide, again, a more affordable and accessible pathway perhaps for them. And then lastly, the thing that I really appreciate is that whether you're a dual credit high school student or you're a 40-year-old going back and getting an associate's or a new certificate to help, enter the workforce, there's a space for everybody there. So, I've kind of gone on a lot of different directions, but what I will say is that just like there's a space for every student that comes onto our campuses, young or old, whatever identity they may have, there's a space for individuals as well. I am somebody who comes from a politics and policy. I used to work at the legislature. I used to work at the White House. I'm very much a generalist in nature. And there is a need for that in terms of folks helping the community college needing folks who are informed in that space. But of course, there's a need for frontline staff. There's a need for folks who are committed to student advocacy. There's definitely a need for folks who are well-versed in understanding the value of data and student success and how those intertwine. And so whether it's somebody who likes to work with the high school students, the adult learners, somebody who likes to work in workforce and in economic development, there's a space for anybody at community colleges, regardless of what your interest and background may be.
Issue maybe with Manny's connection there.
Oh, I'm sorry. Hopefully that at least semi came out coherent.
The rest of you hearing him? Okay.
Yeah, fine.
The other thing, Manny,
I
I
think
think you
Bob was
mentioned about public schools. Most community colleges now. Can you hear me now?
You froze for a moment, but you're back.
Okay. You were mentioning working with public school districts. And I know, of course, in Austin Community College and a lot of other community colleges, we have an early college high school. So a lot of times when we have graduations, we have students walking across that stage getting their 2-year degree at Austin Community College, maybe a week before to other kinds of higher ed
Barbara, you're freezing.
options after the community college. Yeah. Any example from Alamo in support
Barbara, you're freezing, so I'm not able.
services, wraparound services?
Yeah, Barbara, you're freezing. So would you repeat that, please?
Anything that you have for wraparound services with Alamo, that student support services that you instituted there?
Yeah, sure. And then I do want to speak a little bit more from what Manny was saying and Ed too about the opportunity to make the community college your profession. We did a lot of things at Alamo that came out of our work with the Baldrige quality framework. It really drove us to analyze why were students not being as successful as we felt that they should be. And so we built a model around several different systems because we learned that one of the biggest problems for students is not the academic side. Remember, I said earlier that we learned that every student can learn. Often the problem is financial issues. They have home issues. They are adults, and so they may get laid off from their job or whatever. And those get in the way of their succeeding. So we built several wraparound systems that really made a huge impact. Number one, we learned that the traditional counseling model was not effective for community college students. For a faculty counselor to wait in his or her office for a student to drop by in order to get help, that didn't happen. So the students typically would ask a boyfriend or a girlfriend. Their parents didn't go to college, so they didn't have their parents to go to, or at least their parents really weren't able to help them. So we changed that to an advising model. And we restructured our whole system so that we had professional advisors that each had a specific cohort of students to which they were responsible. And also, every student then knew who his or her advisor was. Before that, you'd ask a student, who's your counselor? And they had no clue because they'd never been to a counselor. Now the advisor and the student had an active relationship. Even if the student dropped out, that advisor was charged to try to keep bringing that student back in, to find grants, to find scholarships, to find other ways to help that student be successful. And as a result of that, our retention rates of students went up dramatically. And of course, one of the predictors of graduation is staying in college, completing your courses, returning after summer. So we did a number of systems that encourage students to stay over the summer rather than take the summer off to work or whatever, because that's a predictor that students will not return. So all of those things were tied to something that we were especially proud of. We created a student success centers at each of our 5 colleges, where we had food bank services, we had clothing services. So if a student had an interview and they didn't have a suit or a dress adequate for that interview, we had clothing lockers that they could borrow those clothes in order to have that interview. We arranged counseling support systems, particularly for veterans, many of whom had PTSD issues or other related issues. We created systems for students to have childcare services. We had a number of homeless students. We actually built a dormitory at one of our colleges to make sure that students had housing, all that kind of stuff. And as a result of that, our graduation rate increased over 220% during the time we were there. We became the largest producer of graduates in the state of Texas, higher even than Dallas. And Dallas is much larger. And Dallas always had a lot of money, and so they always had good rates of graduation, but we exceeded that. And then we became one of the highest producers of graduates in the nation, winning the Aspen Award for Community College Excellence a couple of years ago. So all of those systems were really built around our better learning about what students needed to be successful. We started a program that ultimately nationally became the Pathways program. We started that before that program was even generated. We learned from very good friends of ours, Kay and Byron McClenny, who Barbara I had dinner with the other night here in Denver. And they came up with the idea that students don't do optional. And that seems so subtle, but it really is important. So when faculty have a program that says, okay, we have a reading lab or a language lab or a math lab or a bio lab or whatever, and those are all very nice, but if you just say they're available, students typically don't use them. They don't have the time. They don't make the time. I got to pick up my child at daycare. I've got to go to my next job. I've got to go home and cook dinner for my family, whatever. But when you make it a requirement as part of the curriculum, well, then of course they go. And of course, when they go, their grades improve and their retention improves. So we learned all those kinds of things through the research that we did. So let me just kind of stop there.
Thank you, Bruce. Yeah.
But Barbara, let me add one more thing. I want to say something about employment. Okay. One of the things that was suggested earlier is community colleges are very innovative. We are much more likely than a university to focus on those issues that we learn about in terms of students and different cohorts of students. Not every student is the same. One of the things that we learned, and one of the things that I teach, is that you've got to, as an administrative unit and a board, you've got to understand that students are not just one thing. They vary by all sorts of different variables. And so colleges need to really focus on what are the needs of the African-American female veteran students compared to white female veteran students, or whatever they may be, because they're different. They have different needs. And so that understanding was crucial for us. But we encouraged every community college that I was CEO of, employees not only to help us improve student success, but to grow themselves personally and professionally. At Alamo, one of the things that I'm most proud of, 20 of our mid-level administrators, our deans and directors, became college presidents. And I did that all the way through my career. And so I'd go to a conference, I'd go to Ed's conference, and I'd have people coming up to me saying, Dr. Les, you may not remember me, but you hired me when you were president of Onondaga Community College. I'm now president of such and such a college. So it's a wonderful community of people working together across the nation, helping each other out, supporting individual professional growth. So if you someday think you might like to be a dean or a vice president or a president, I would encourage you to do it through the community college route, because not only you're going to have a much more enjoyable and productive career than you might as a university president, regardless of the status issues, you're going to be much happier being able to know that you've made a real difference, that you helped students succeed, that you weren't spending your time in the politics of the university world. You were spending your time helping students to grow and your community grow and your companies to grow, et cetera. So I'll leave it there.
Very well put. Ed, do you have anything to share before we open it up for some questions? And maybe an example.
Yeah, so much of what you heard from Manny and Kathy and Bruce, I couldn't agree more with. You know, especially what Bruce was saying at the end there regarding if you're interested in working at a community college, the fulfilling aspect of doing that. That's one of the reasons I've stayed involved with community colleges all these years. It's just such fulfilling work. I deeply believe in the mission and values associated with community colleges. The folks who work there, you heard Bruce say they have a passion for education, unlike at four-year institutions. Not that folks at four-year institutions don't have a passion for education, but a lot of their focus is on research and maybe raising money and those type things. Whereas the folks at community colleges, especially the faculty members, I mean, their focus is on teaching and learning. Some folks do some level of research, but their primary focus is teaching and learning. And I say that people who work at community colleges, they're a special breed because of that, because of their focus on helping the students in their community better their lives, you know, and providing the support services that are needed for those students to do that. They're a special breed of people, and I would encourage anybody who's thinking about working at a community college, whether it's as a faculty member or as a administrator, leader at a community college, to consider doing so because of the joy that work will bring you.
Yeah, I think that all of us would agree with that. There was one question in the chat about the Fielding program. Ed Leach is a faculty member at Fielding, as is Bruce, as is Kathy, and I'm the program director for our education program. We have an emphasis area in higher education, community college leadership. So you can get that kind of concentration in our EDD program. Manny could serve as what they call an external reviewer for our dissertations if he was wanting to do that in the community college field. So we'd just encourage you to look at our EDD program as a way to transition your career maybe into working in the community college sector. As you can see, some of the folks that we have working at Fielding have substantial background in this area and substantial connections. Okay, Ed put a pitch in his community college course. He still has room for one or two more for this next term if people want to do that. Any questions that folks have for our panelists, or any comments that you'd like to make? If you want to take yourself off of mute. I don't see any questions in the chat particularly, but we can certainly entertain some or a comment. Tara, I saw you took yourself off chat. Welcome. You're coming to Austin, so I'll
Yes.
welcome you and see you there.
Yes, I can't wait. I'm looking forward to it. I just want to say thank you to the panelists for answering these questions. This is very important work. I also work in a community college. I'm an adjunct instructor. part-time. And one of the challenges that I find is that as an adjunct, there's not much opportunity for professional development for adjuncts. And so it's kind of like I have to make my own PD. So like going to NYSCA conference in Austin, or networking, or being a part of different organizations, just so I can make sure that I can continue to be creative and enhance my craft as an instructor. And so just forums like this to speak to just hear the feedback from the panelists was very informative, and I just want to say thank you for this. This was great.
Tara, what community college are you at?
I work at Norwalk Community College.
Oh,
Connecticut.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I used to be the chancellor of the Connecticut system some
Okay.
years ago. What I would encourage you to do is talk to the president of the college. And I don't know who that is today. What's that person's name? Tara, do you know the president's name? No, okay.
No.
But I would make an appointment, talk to the president, and tell him or her that you are an adjunct faculty member there, and that you would very much like to be able to participate in the faculty development programs that
Yeah.
exist there. Many colleges now are doing much more to include adjunct faculty. We did that at Alamo. It was just part of it. But there are colleges that still limit to full-time faculty, certainly.
Yeah.
But I'd become an activist. Go talk to the president and tell that person, it's time for them to include adjuncts, particularly in the internal workshops, because it doesn't cost them anymore to, add another seat to the room. But you're absolutely right. Professional development, ongoing personal development is crucial, not just to your benefit, but to the benefit of the entire organization. We had a phrase at Alamo that really, I think, inspired everybody. It's called a leader in every seat. And the whole concept here is that everyone, every faculty member, every adjunct faculty member, every staff person, every part-time staff person, every administrator, every trustee needed to continuously learn leadership skills and grow in order for the whole organization to be successful. And we proved the value of that by what we did. We changed everything so that everybody had to learn. We created a model using the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People as our leadership model, and everybody, including trustees, were trained in the 7 Habits. We learned that from Toyota. Toyota told, and other companies in the area said, if you will prepare your students to be Covey certified leaders, we'll put them in the front of the interview line so that they have the first chance to get jobs with Toyota. And a number of other companies said that the same thing, because they use 7 Habits for their own internal employee development. I worked with Sean Covey. We created a certification model. Every student became certified. I signed it. Sean Covey signed it. It went on their transcript. And we said, well, if it's good for the students, it's good for us. That became the foundation of our whole program. So everybody learns that model. So you're absolutely saying the right thing. You as an adjunct professor have as much need to have opportunities for your personal and professional growth because it helps students succeed.
yeah.
Right.
I think that, like Ed said, I'm glad you're coming to NYSOD. That's going to be really helpful. The League for Innovation has national conferences also, Tara, that bring a lot of faculty there too.
Barbara, can I jump in real
Yes,
quick with
go
a quick
ahead,
point?
Kenny.
Professional development, it's near and dear to my heart. What I would say, if there's always organic and free opportunities, as long as you're willing to volunteer time. I know that based off of the work that we do at ACC, we're always very intentional in listening to the staff associations, the faculty associations, full-time, adjunct. Get involved in those associations that are internal and learn about what are some of the big issues that are going on, not just in your department, but maybe across all adjuncts. And as you get more informed in that space, those are just additional tools to have when you are, looking for another role. Because what we find is that oftentimes those issues are systemic, and they help inform board members whenever we hear the associations report to us. They help inform the chancellor whenever those associations rise to their level. And so getting involved in those associations not just help out in terms of building that network of folks across the college and your space, but just becoming well aware of the challenges that other folks are facing. So that's an additional venue that I think doesn't go utilized enough. And I say that as a long ago student government nerd who that's how I got connected into higher education kind of work. And I'm always will be an advocate for those staff faculty associations, adjunct and full-time.
Good, thank you.
It looks
Well,
like Cheryl Devonish is the president of Norwalk Community College. Cheryl Devonish is her name. So make an appointment tomorrow.
Yeah, Tara, you can tell him that Dr. Leslie told you to do it.
Absolutely.
You
I-
can blame
will.
him.
Yeah,
And you're welcome to use my name as well.
Oh,
yeah, put the real pressure on her.
Okay, I will. Thank you.
Marjorie had a question in the
oh, did she?
chat.
I'm sorry, Marjorie, I didn't see it.
Yeah, Marjorie, do you want to explain your point?
Didn't-
Marjorie, can you hear me? Marjorie Wu?
What was the question, Bruce? I
Well,
didn't,
she says that she's now returned. I'm looking for it here in the chat. She's returned from Asia.
Asia, yeah, to Austin, yeah.
Yeah, and she's in Austin and she's
Looking to way to
yes.
contribute to the college, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll reach out and talk to Marjorie because she's here in Austin, yeah.
okay.
Thank you, Bruce.
Yeah.
We're coming up to the kind of the end of our hour. Is there any question or comment that any folks would like to make that are either our panelists or people who are attending? Okay, don't see any, so I'll just say, I hope you got the sense of the energy and the enthusiasm that we have for community college work. It's important work, and then at Fielding, like I said, we have that concentration in our education program. If you're looking to work in the community college sector, it's personally rewarding as well as, making a contribution to families, individuals, and the economic viability of the area in which you live and work. So thank you so much for attending our community college panel today, and thank you to our panelists, Ed and Manny and Kathy and Bruce. I'll therefore close the panel today. And again, thank you so much for attending.
Thanks, Barbara, for organizing this. Appreciate
You're
it.
welcome.
Thank you much. See
Yeah.
all of you in Austin.
Absolutely.
Thank you
Thank you.
very
See you
much.
later.
Bye.
Bye all.
Adios.